All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. And if you can hear the noise behind us, it's because we are at the Miami Heat's draft watch party here at Kaseya Center. Our live stream is going for at least the next half hour up until the draft, and then we're going to be reacting to whatever it is that the Heat do tonight. We're going to talk about all the options. We are here at Kaseya Center. Kel'el is talking with Eric Reed right in front of us. Alonzo Mourning is there too. It's a pretty cool scene here at Kaseya. They've got the ball is all the way down. They've got the maybe I can flip this camera around so all you can see. They've got the banners down there like that. We've got things going on the court over there. So it's pretty cool. So thanks for tuning in on YouTube while we're doing this on draft night. But let's start with some news before we get to the draft because we got a bunch of stuff to talk about. But, David, we haven't gotten a chance to talk about this. The Miami Heat extended the qualifying offer to Davion Mitchell officially, the $8.7 million qualifying offer to make him a restricted free agent. And then they also picked up Kaseya Johnson's option in order to bring him back, guarantee his salary.
Yeah, that's surprising moves. That's surprising that they were able to make these moves because sorry, dealing with an echo here, so it's a little unusual and there's a lot of noise.
A lot of things going on.
But yeah, but these are the smart moves, and we know that Davion Mitchell is part of their plans. We know Kaseya showed some potential. They really like what he can provide. So I understand why they were interested in getting these moves out of these weaves. We didn't talk about the Kuminga interest either.
Well, we'll definitely talk about Kuminga. We'll talk about Wiggins. We're going to talk about all of that. I am surprised that they brought back Kaseya Johnson on a guaranteed contract, though. I guess because the deadline was coming up. But it does give them one less roster spot to work with. So I was a little surprised that they did it, but whatever. It was worth mentioning. I wanted to get that out of the way off the top. We'll see what happens with Davion Mitchell, restricted free agent. We expect to bring him back now. So that's the news. But let's talk about Kuminga. Let's talk about Andrew Wiggins. So the Heat reportedly shopping Andrew Wiggins, looking for veterans who can help the offense, help Tyler Hero, and preferably maybe a veteran on an expiring contract. With Wiggins, he's got 2 more years left on his deal. The second year being a player option, so no telling what he's going to do. But they are reportedly looking at potentially shopping him. What do you think about that? I mean, there's been the Kuminga stuff is out there. Obviously, the Sacramento Kings stuff for DeRozan is out there, although that sounds like maybe it's dying here a little bit.
I think there's just disappointment from the front office in terms of what Wiggins can do. And I think we looked at that during the playoffs. The expectations were that he'd be a much more complementary type player to Bam and Tyler, maybe capable of being not necessarily a big three, but at the very least being a little bit more productive than he was. And in the moments where they needed him to be more productive during the playoffs, I think he wilted a little bit. And I think he showed that he might not be suited for that role. And that's fine. Not everybody in the NBA is, nor should they be considered to be so. Wiggins is a complementary player. He can play defense at a high level. He can provide some occasional scoring. But Miami needs more, and they're not going to get that from a player like Andrew Wiggins. He's shown that throughout his career. And it's not necessarily a knock. That's just who he is. He was casting that role in Minnesota. He didn't embrace it. He didn't really thrive. That's why they went out and got a Jimmy Butler in 2018. So or 2017 at that point, really. But I think the understanding is that Wiggins is not going to be the kind of player that Miami needs him to be. And so shopping him around in order to acquire what Miami does need, which is star-level scoring, makes a lot of sense.
I mean, he was going to be part of the Kevin Durant deal, and that obviously didn't happen. And in addition to that, it was going to be, in addition to the Wiggins salary, it was going to be Terry Rozier. It was going to be maybe a draft pick and things like that. So they're probably still looking to get off of Terry Rozier, but I don't think that they're as motivated to get off of him because he is expiring at the very least. And after not getting Durant, it does feel like maybe perhaps the Heat are willing to say, you know what, if that star trade isn't out there for us, or if we don't have the stuff to go get that star, regardless of the star player being out there and available, then maybe we do just do these other, I don't want to call them lateral moves, but start to strategically plan for, frankly, 2026. And if Rozier's contract is expiring, and you could just come off of that at the end of the year, and you can swap Wiggins out for somebody who's on an expiring contract, who could be helpful, right? You're not going to give up on this season. We know that that's not what the Heat do, but they can kind of start strategically looking at, okay, we want to be competitive, but we really want to try to see if we can create a lot of cap space to do something meaningful next summer, because we can't really do anything meaningful perhaps this summer.
Yeah, I think you have to position yourself. You have to make the kind of the hockey assist, the transactional hockey assist. It's the setup to set up the actual big move that Miami could make down the road. And so it just, at least they seem to have a plan. And maybe it's not a plan that a lot of fans agree with, or maybe it's not certainly something to the same level of acquiring a Hall of Fame talent like KD, but even that was met with some lukewarm reception from the fan base. So I'm a little surprised at that, to be honest with you. I mean, we talked about that a lot, but that fell through. Miami has to pivot, and I think they're in a good position now to make some kind of other moves that will keep them afloat, if not necessarily help them thrive. And they're not going to blow it up. And I think that's, again, we've talked about this before. That's just not how this team operates.
Right.
But you can position yourself so you can have these movable contracts so that eventually, as you continue to build assets, you can build those towards the goal and purpose of acquiring a superstar.
We've seen them do this sort of two different times. 2008 and 2009, when they started getting those short-term contracts that came off the books in 2010.
Mario Moon.
And then in 2016, the James Johnson, Dion Waiters,
Kelly
and all
Olynyk.
those contracts, where Pat Riley came out and said, these are super tradable contracts. Yeah. And so that's been my biggest thing. That's the problem with this roster right now, is they don't really have guys that people want. And if you could go get guys who people want on manageable contracts, we make the comparison all the time about when the Pacers went out, signed Bruce Brown to a very team-friendly deal that was chunky enough where they were able to use it in a big trade. They ended up getting Pascal Siakam in addition to the 3 first-round picks that they attached to Bruce Brown. But you need the big thing. You need the centerpiece. You need the something that helps you go get those guys. And right now, nobody really wants Wiggins. Nobody wants Rozier. Duncan Robinson's not moving the needle for guys. And they don't necessarily have draft picks. We're going to talk about what they could do to maybe increase their allotment of draft picks here in a little bit. But let's talk about the Kuminga option here, because Anthony Slater from The Athletic reports earlier this morning that there is real interest between the Miami Heat and Jonathan Kuminga. I'm showing the quote from The Athletic report here on YouTube. Kevin Durant trade might have helped. The Miami Heat missed out on Durant and have legitimate Kuminga interest per league sources, among others expected to explore the idea as the market materializes. That's notable, but I also want to, I talked about this earlier in a short little 10-minute YouTube video, David, but since then the Miami Herald, Barry Jackson and Anthony Chang have come out and said maybe there was interest, but that's not something that's ongoing right now, but things change very quickly in the NBA, as we know. What are your thoughts on Kuminga? Because I proposed, hey, you'd have to do it in a sign and trade because you couldn't sign him outright. You don't have cap space. So could you do it in a sign and trade and perhaps send Wiggins back to Golden State?
I think, again, they're kind of low on Wiggins. They don't see him as being the kind of player that can contribute to the same level. And if there's interest in Kuminga, it's because they see at the very least potential that has been yet to be realized. And we've made this argument before that typically if Steve Kerr and the Golden State team has built the way they are, if you can't thrive there, similarly to what we see in Miami, if you can't find a way to thrive here, there's a good chance that you might not thrive anyway. But there's no denying Kuminga's talent and potential. They just haven't been realized in Golden State. And so I think the expectation is, well, you know what? We know what we're going to get in Wiggins, and it's not what we want. So let's take a chance with mystery box A, and that happens to be Kuminga. And so I think they're going to take a swing at a player who has some upside, is young enough, and fits the kind of window that they're looking at with Bam and Tyler Hero. So it's a smart move.
What are your thoughts on Kuminga?
I'm not necessarily a fan because, again, I've only seen what we can. Like, there's potential. There's efficiency issues. And all we hear is kind of a buzz about him not being able to necessarily endear himself to Steve Kerr. And that's a little problematic because I think Kerr and Spo are cut from similar cloths in terms of what they expect.
Didn't stop Steve players from taking on Jimmy Butler.
Yeah. Well, again, because you're gonna, what you're getting, right? And I think that's the hope with a guy like Butler is that, you know what, he's going to be competitive. He's going to be an occasional jerk, but you accept that because you know that you're getting playoff Jimmy. You're getting, a guy who wants to compete for a championship. I wonder what Kuminga's motivations are, and they might be a little bit self-interested. I'm not
Oh, for sure.
reporting this, but I think that's just kind of the vibe I got is that
No, I mean, he talked to Slater about it exactly. He said he wants to be a go-to guy. He wants to be the guy who the ball is in his hands in the moments that matter. And on one hand, I kind of like it because I like that little, I like the chutzpah.
you want the attitude, yeah.
I like the attitude. On the other hand, it's like,
not heat culture.
well, it's not necessarily heat culture, but it's also, it's a little problematic. It's great if it works. It's a great attitude to have if it works. Not such a great attitude if it doesn't work. But we're going to put a pin in the Kuminga conversation for now. We've got Antonio Diaz. He is our head scout at Eurohoops Scouting. We have him to come on and talk about some of the prospects in the draft. Antonio, thanks for joining Locked On Heat. Appreciate the time.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. So let's just jump right in. Miami has the 20th pick, at least for now. We'll see what ends up happening here. But let's assume they stick there at 20 and they pick somebody. How deep is this draft? And do you think that he can find another contributor, a legit guy, at 20?
Yeah, they can find contributors for now. They can find guys with more upside that they need to work around more. There are like a few guys on there on that kind of section in the 20s that you never know because the draft after the 8th, 10th pick it's like you can just go for whatever. I know Clayton has been talked a lot for the Heat. I have him a little bit lower than that because I don't know if Clayton is exactly what the Heat need, like another guard that can shoot the ball, that can play make a bit, but the decision making isn't all there. The defense isn't there as well. So pairing him with Euro, I don't know if it's the right thing to do. There are some guys that could fall, and that I would pick, like guys like Jace Richardson, someone like Rasheer Fleming, high upside guys, even Adu Thiero, guys that can defend, long guys that can contribute on the offensive end that I think the Heat could take. I don't know if Jace Richardson falls to them because he's been kind of going up and down in this year's draft. But he's someone I would pick because even though he's not like that particularly a big guard, he plays big. He's the son of Jason Richardson, so he has that athleticism as well. So he would be a great pick if he falls to the Heat.
What do you think is the area of need for Miami? Because you mentioned defense, but I think a lot of people are looking for a scorer, somebody who can at least offer some playmaking and complementary scoring. So if you don't think it's Clayton, do you have a name in particular that you think would fit best for Miami's needs?
I mean, I think anyone the Heat chooses to go with can offer something to the Heat because there isn't like one thing the Heat need. It's multiple things. So I would say like a guard that can get to the rim, because you saw the difference with Davion Mitchell when he came in, the energy that he plays with, the ability to get to the rim, it opened stuff up for the Heat. So they probably can add that, and also someone to get easier shots to Bam, to Kel'el. So that kind of guard could be helpful. And in that case, Jace Richardson would be my pick. Nolan Traore would be another guy I would pick. Then in terms of complementary guys, I really like Hugo Gonzalez from Real Madrid. He's an off-ball guy who can get to the rim. Shot 60% at rim this year. Has been developing his shot. He's a good defender as well, so he can do a little bit of the wing stuff for the Heat. And then, as I said, Rasheer Fleming would be a really nice guy to pair with Bam or Kel'el, but then you'd have a problem with one of them would have to be on the bench. Bam wouldn't be the guy to be, so either Fleming or Kel'el would be there. I like Adu Thiero as well, but it's more of a defensive guard who can play next to the rim, and then again you have the problem of everyone just playing over there.
Yeah, we took Adu Thiero in the Locked On Heat or Locked On NBA network mock draft, and because of exactly the defensive playmaking stuff, I can't remember if any of these guards that we were talking about were on the board when we did our mock draft. Not that the Heat care who we took at our mock draft, but that's what we did. What can you tell us about Liam McNeely? Because that's who ESPN had him. ESPN had him mocked to 20 to Miami in their mock draft this morning.
He's a guy I also have a little bit lower than most people. I think he can do some stuff that Duncan can do. He's a big wing who can shoot the ball. Didn't shoot particularly well this season, but he was injured. But he can be a movement shooter, come off handoffs, come off screens to shoot the ball. Some quality in getting inside and going for like a push shot or a floater. The defense isn't all there, and I worry about his his mobility. That's what I separated him from Duncan. Duncan is much more speedy, much more capable of moving in the court, and McNeely is a more he's not as quick as Duncan, I would say.
That's not saying much because Duncan's not exactly known for his speed either.
Yeah.
If there are you hearing any scuttle among draft circles and people about guys who might be able to fall, but guys who might fall tonight, potentially to 20? 20 is a far way to drop, but we saw it last year with Dalton Connect, not all the way to 20 necessarily, but is there a guy in your mind that would be maybe a dream target for Miami if he were to fall to 20?
The guy that always comes to mind is Jace, because he will give you what you need, like athleticism in the guard position, capable of defending and getting to the rim, some shooting. If he falls, it would be my pick. I've heard of Asa Newell maybe dropping a bit, but like the same stuff with Rasheed Fleming. Asa Newell is a 4-5, so you have to put him on the bench, and drafting for a player that you know is going to be on the bench may not be what the Heat are looking for. Then after that, you never know with guys like Noah Senga, for example, a big wing, lengthy from Ulm in Germany. Cedric Coward has been going up on boards. Yeah, if Cedric Coward is there, just take him. I don't think he's going to be there because he's going up, but it will be a great pick. And then those guys, Fleming, Thiero. I don't think Carter Bryant is there. I wouldn't hate Cam Jones from Marquette as well. More of a secondary handler, capable of getting to the rim as well. Some shooting. It's more on the older side, but he's a good pick as well. And Nick Clifford as well. He's going to be 23 when the season starts, so he will be playing now. But he's a pretty good wing as well.
Antonio Diaz from Euro Hoops Scouting. Before we let you go here, we're a few minutes away from the draft starting. Zoom out. Doesn't have to be a Miami Heat thing. Give us one prediction. Give us a bold prediction for the NBA draft tonight.
Bold prediction. I think Derek Queen is gonna slip a bit, and I think teams are gonna regret it. Yeah. I don't know if he even slips to someone like the Thunder, and then everyone is gonna be asking, how did the Thunder get him?
It feels like the Thunder are just really good at getting these breaks in the draft. Antonio Diaz, Euro Hoops head scout over there. Appreciate the time, man. Thanks for jumping on.
Of course. Thank you.
So he's higher on Jace Richardson than I think I am. He's lower on Walter Clayton Jr. than I think both of us are. He would have Richardson above Clayton. And you know what? He's not alone in that. A lot of people feel the same way. He said that he's small, but he plays bigger than that.
Yep. Elite speed, burst, athleticism, I think. And I think, look, maybe everybody's just kind of convinced this way, but we saw it with Devin Carter. We see it with players all the time. Like sons of NBA players that grew up in this environment tend to have an extra advantage just in terms of they train for the NBA. They know how to play the NBA game, how to prepare for the NBA. And so they're already leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of the players in their class. I think that makes a difference because they get a perspective in their homes that other players in the draft just don't get. And so I think that makes a difference. So you have to be able to show the talent, certainly.
Yeah.
And I think Richardson did that. I think the fact that he was able to crack Tom Izzo's system at Michigan State as a freshman, which is historically something that hasn't happened, also speaks well, is that you just couldn't bench him. You couldn't keep him
You know who
there.
did that?
Yeah.
Draymond Green. Completely different players, but you think about a coach's dream type of player. That goes a long way. My problem with Jace Richardson, I told you this when we made our Miami Heat big board, I want to love him. I want to believe in him so much at the NBA level. And when I watch Michigan State, I love him. I think he's such a fluid athlete. I think his, not just the north-south movement, his side-to-side movement, he's kind of squirrely and slippery in the paint. That stuff tends to translate to the NBA level. But I just have so I go from, like, on one hand, watching the film and being like, I really like this guy. And then I go into the numbers and I do all the nerd stuff where I start looking at the anthromatic and the measurements and the wingspan and all that stuff. And I'm like, guys like that just don't tend to pan out at the NBA level. So I struggle with that. But I guess it's one thing to say if you're in the lottery to take a swing on a guy like that. But at 20, maybe it's not as much of a gamble anymore.
Yeah, I tend to think that stuff is overrated when it comes to the draft. Like, you always have your prototype player or a guy that fits all the physical tools that you might be looking for a player. There are things that you just can't measure when it comes to the draft in terms of the intangibles, and I think those matter more. Like, you have to have some talent, some ability, and some physical tools. And in Richardson's case, he certainly has that. So that he's not the perfect specimen or anything like that, I get that as well. But he has the off-the-court stuff. He has the internal fortitude. He has the interest, the drive. He has the background, the experience. Those things matter, and I think they matter more than some of those other tangible measurables that you're talking about, because I think those, you can fall in love with those and be like, oh, he's got this, a Thon McCurr. Think about a Thon McCurr. I mean, just as a name that just came to my head. It's like, oh, he's got this incredible wingspan. He's got all this potential. It's like, yeah, I mean, he was never able to make
a long time.
I know. It's just, there's always a player like that where you can kind of see, oh, he's got these kind of tangible, measurable, physical tools, and the expectation might be, oh, that he's going to be able to contribute. Because
they don't have the production in whatever league that they were coming from, college, overseas, wherever it might be. And Jace Richardson had the production at Michigan State, and that's the thing I ultimately want. I'd love to have the guy who has the physical profile of somebody who, percentage-wise, tends to pan out at the NBA level, and the production where I feel pretty good about taking them. The problem is it's hard to find guys like that at 20. The Heat aren't picking at 14. They're not picking at 15. It's harder to find guys like that at 20. There is more and more. Let's talk draft strategy for Miami here a little bit as we wait for the draft to start here. And just as a quick reminder, thanks to everybody who is tuning in to our live stream here. We are going to talk a little bit longer about the draft. Keep this page up if you're watching us live on YouTube. We're going to take a break a little bit when the draft begins, and then we're going to come right back and we're going to react to the news, and we're going to react to things that are happening, and certainly we're going to react to Miami's pick here. But before we do all of that, let's talk draft strategy. The Heat can move out. They can move up. There's some smoke that they actually might have a guy in mind that they might try to move up for. I don't know how they're going to do that. There's also a lot of smoke that they could just trade out of this pick and punt this year and trade this pick for a pick in 2027 that would unlock their ability to trade up to 4 first-round picks later this summer. It all makes a ton of sense depending on who's on the board and what's available and what kind of offers you're getting. But between all of those things, what do you like? Are you expecting them to even use the pick tonight? Like, what percentage chance would you say that they even pick somebody at 20? It could be up, down, out, whatever.
I think it's a 40% chance that they keep the pick. I just don't. It has to be the right player that drops there, and they're not going to use the pick just for the sake of using it. And so, if they don't feel like that player is going to be a contributor or somebody with a kind of long-term upside that they're looking for, there's just no point in it. It's better used as an asset, as you said, to trade down, trade out, and be able to acquire a pick later on for the draft where you might be able to find said player.
It's easier said than done, isn't it, though? Like, to pick, to your point, the 20th pick isn't a super valuable pick. So the idea of trading that to a team that desperately wants to get into the back end of the first round and they're willing to give up a pick in 2027 for that, I don't know how easy that is to find. You might have to attach other things to the 20th pick. You might have to figure it out. Maybe there's a creative way. I'm not saying that they can't do it. I'm just saying it's not an automatic given that they can do it, although I'm sure they've been having these conversations, canvassing the league going into tonight. The fact that they haven't already done a trade like that, let's say they have something on the back burner, that they do think that there's a potential chance to take 20 and turn that into a 2027 first and unlock all this flexibility that we're talking about in trades. The only reason you don't do that now, because we're already seeing teams swap these picks. Indiana just did it. Twice. That means that they're interested in something in this draft, right?
That's typically how they operate. They have their eyes on something in particular. I mean, and you can say it's either potential, or in the case of Jaime Jaquez, it was a guy who fit the immediate goals of that team. That was a team that had just come off a championship run. They were looking for somebody who was an immediate contributor, somebody that with experience, somebody that they knew from the right coaching system, et cetera. So, I mean, that made a lot of sense. So I'm not sure exactly what it is that they're looking for. I don't know what it is they need, because as Antonio said just minutes ago, there are so many needs across the board for this roster, and I don't know that you're going to find it at 20th. So do they take a chance? Do they hold on to the pick and say, you know what, we like this player enough? Or do they say, you know what, let's punt, let's kick it down the road and see if maybe we can use that for something else? They're active. We know that there are conversations taking place right here in this building right now. I just don't know what those conversations entail, whether it's not to acquire a player that they think will be a good contributor, or whether or not it's to acquire a pick because they're not enamored with anybody in particular in this draft.
Well, we are hearing more and more that they could be targeting a guard. And I've heard that. I've seen it reported, I think, on ESPN. I don't want to get that wrong, but it's hard to know how much of that is smoke and how much of that is legit, especially with this organization. But it would make sense if they're looking for a guard. Terry Rozier did not work out. Davion Mitchell is technically not on the roster yet. He's a restricted free agent. They extended the qualifying offer. They still have to get him a contract. It would make sense if they were looking to shore up that guard position tonight, just to at least have an option. Maybe it's not the answer. Maybe it's not the star guard. It's probably not the next Dwayne Wade. But to have an option there, I could see them going in that direction. You're looking at the guards that could be potentially available at 20. Jeremiah Fears, I have him on the list just because I don't know where he's going to fall. You hear things all over the place. I would be shocked if he was there at 20. You're hearing stuff that he could be there. He could be taken at 4, right? Like his range is huge. But you go Jeremiah Fears, Nick Clifford, Liam McNeely, Walter Clayton Jr., Jace Richardson, Will Riley, Ben Seraph, Nolan Traore. All of these guys some of these guys could potentially be there at 20, and you just wonder, where are they on Miami's board? Are they on Miami's board? We don't even know.
They have to be. There's always some kind of player that goes through some dramatic, unexpected slip, and that's, did they have a chance to work him out? Did they do their research? Did they do their background and intel to find out if he's the kind of guy? Because we know how much that matters to the front office. They need their heat guy. They need somebody who has the culture, the background. Those things matter, are a huge factor in determining the kind of player they're looking for, because they've made mistakes in the past and they're not willing to blow a pick on just somebody who has potential or upside. It has to be a little bit more than that. They have to have the work ethic and determination to be great. And I think that's what you're seeing from some players, and other players you might not see it, and they're the ones that are going to drop deeper and deeper into the draft.
So the NBA draft is starting. You could probably hear Adam Silver here in the background, but I wanted to get to one more topic before we take a little bit of a break here to see the Dallas Mavericks take Cooper Flag.
Surprised. You think they're going to take him?
I think they're going to take him.
He might be the guy, huh?
The Main Event is a pretty sick nickname.
Is what?
The Main Event. That's his nickname.
The Main Event?
MAINE.
I like it.
That's a good nickname.
Very much so, yeah, I like it.
I like nicknames that tie a location, like Greek Freak. Like, these are good nicknames.
Yeah, like Off Night.
Yep. So our friend Anthony Irwin reported earlier today that there's been conversations between the Heat and the Lakers, potentially around a Andrew Wiggins for Rui Hachimura swap-ish. Hachimura makes about $10 million less than Wiggins, so there'd be other pieces in there, potentially a return of Gabe Vincent. Maybe it's a Maxi Kleber type of salary that's coming back. But Rui Hachimura, expiring salary. Gabe Vincent or Maxi Kleber, expiring salary. And in one of these versions that Anthony Irwin posted on Twitter, and I retweeted it, it would be Wiggins and Kyle Anderson going to the Lakers for Rui Hachimura. He had Maxi Kleber in there, but I think it could be Gabe Vincent just as easily. And Dalton Connect. And then Shake Milton for additional salary. Shake Milton's contract is non-guaranteed. The Heat could waive that. The Lakers don't have to include it. Whatever. They don't need it in there. That, to me, is really interesting. And then Barry Jackson tweeted on top of that, could they then swap Dalton Connect? Could they send him to Charlotte along with the 20th pick in this draft and get a 2027 first? Maybe perhaps even their own 2027 first back from the Terry Rozier trade. Well, it's interesting that these conversations are happening, according to Irwin.
Yeah, Connect was an interest. He's on Charlotte's radar.
Yes.
Because of the Nick Richards trade that fell through, obviously. So I think that makes a lot of sense. You and I have been fans of Hachimura. I think there's potential there.
Yeah.
I don't think he's been utilized properly. He's not going to be the kind of player that Miami wants right now, but I think he could be a contributor. Is that the kind of lateral move that helps Miami? I don't know. I'm a little iffish.
It leaves him a little thin at wing, right? Who starts at small forward? Can Rui start at small forward? He's more of a stretch 4.
Yeah.
If you really want to go big, I suppose you could do Hachimura, Bam, and Ware.
Yeah.
Or does Ware move to the bench, and is it Bam and Hachimura? I would kind of look at Hachimura as a 6-man, like a super 6-man in that regard, that as soon as Ware or Bam check out, he slides into that power forward spot alongside whichever one is still on the court. I like Hachimura.
Yep.
His scoring is unreal. Defensively, it's hit and miss. Rebounding, very hit or miss. It's a lot of Jonathan Kuminga, a lot of the same things we talk about Kuminga, although Kuminga's upside is probably higher than right now than Hachimura's.
Sure.
But I do like Hachimura. He is a scorer. He's super productive. I like his competitiveness, and he's a knockdown shooter. He's a better outside shooter, I think, than Wiggins, although you would argue Wiggins probably does everything else at a higher level.
Right.
But at the same time, he's an expiring salary, and if you can turn Wiggins into multiple players and then multiple contracts, and then maybe just take Dalton Connect back, right? And just say, hey, second draft guy, let's take a chance on him. And maybe these are pieces that you can move at the deadline or they come off the books in the summer, and it gives you a little bit more flexibility. It's probably a lateral move, but if you're already out on Wiggins, and again reporting that here from Miami Herald that Miami is actively shopping Wiggins, I don't hate the idea of just turning the Wiggins piece into 2 or 3 helpful pieces that also increase your flexibility.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they'd be interested in a reunion with Gabe Vincent. I think they wanted to bring him back when he left in free agency. He just took the money in Los Angeles, so I don't think there's any hard feelings there. I think he's still well liked, and I think he'd be a good contributor in many ways. Like he'd be a great point guard.
He would play over Rozier.
He knows. Yeah. He knows the system, certainly, but he's also a good stabilizing locker room presence. Could Hachimura be kind of like the offensive version of OG Anunoby in the sense that he wasn't maximized the way he could have been in Toronto, and he's looking for another opportunity? He's already been with the Wizards. He's already been with the Lakers. The difference for me is that they don't have the superstar talent that allows Hachimura to kind of flourish as a third guy, and that's really his role. I think is ideally would be a third guy. Is he a better third option on this roster than Wiggins is?
Yes. Heat fans would be really upset with how good Wiggins would be in a Laker uniform. They'd be like, why couldn't we get this out of him? But to your point, because he wouldn't be playing off of Luka and LeBron in Miami.
Exactly.
I don't know what to make of it. I would love to have Gabe Vincent back here, even if it's just for a year. I think he would be a huge boost to a locker room that you and I have talked about this. The Heat locker room just felt like a drag last year because of the Jimmy Butler drama and everything like that. Gabe Vincent is a ray of sunshine in every room he walks into.
Everybody's best friend on the roster.
Literally Bam's best friend.
Yeah, who's your best friend on the roster? It's like Gabe.
Everybody's like Gabe, probably Gabe.
Gabe.
It's like everybody? He gets around, man. But it would be great to have him back. And you know me, I was begging Miami to trade for Rui Hachimura a couple years ago. They didn't do it. Lakers traded like 5 second-round picks or something for him when they did it back then. But I would be into it. But then again, they don't have to do this, right? They've had conversations with Sacramento. about a DeMar DeRozan swap. One thing that we never talked about in regards to DeMar DeRozan, what's really interesting about the DeRozan contract, it's only guaranteed for $10 million next year. It's not fully guaranteed. So although Wiggins has 2 years left, including this upcoming season, and DeRozan has 2 years left, Miami, it's not exactly expiring because you'd still be on the hook for $10 million. But $10 million versus $30 million is very different, right? And so if Miami wanted to create cap space next year, they could just waive DeRozan and save $20 million on the cap. You have to eat $10 million, but maybe that's enough to get done whatever it is that they hope to get done next summer. I heard right before the draft that maybe those conversations have fizzled a little bit on Sacramento's side, but to me, this sounds like Miami doing their due diligence.
Yeah.
I don't know if something happens tonight with the Heat. Maybe they just take somebody at 20 and figure out the rest later, because the 20th pick doesn't necessarily have to be involved in anything that we're having a conversation about right now. But I think something's going to, the Heat are going to do something. It's not going to be a Durant something, but they're going to do something.
You can only hope. Obviously, and I'm curious to see what that would be, because I think we'll get an idea of what the bigger picture is. That might be the kind of puzzle piece that kind of starts the process and goes, oh, okay, this is what they're building towards. Whether it's clearly 2026 or whether or not they see somebody that's going to be a contributor, and that kind of shapes how they view this team. You know, I could even see like a selection being made, and that kind of jump starts the process of saying, you know what, we made that pick for X team, but we're actually trading that player for something else, something that we haven't foreseen or maybe even heard about. And with an organization as tight-lipped as Miami, there could be so many options on the table, and we just wouldn't know until it actually gets consummated. So it's an exciting night. I mean, there's not a lot of buzz about the 20th pick per se, but there's potential there, not just for the player that they might wind up selecting, but also for the fact that there's a multitude of different transactions that could be unlocked by having that pick available to them.
Well said, right? There's not a lot of buzz about what the Heat do at 20. There is buzz about what the Heat do over the next couple of days.
Right.
And I expect something to happen. So in regards to Wiggins, we talked about the Lakers option. We talked about DeMar DeRozan. We talked about Jonathan Kuminga. One other name that I just want to put out there before everything gets started tonight, the Utah Jazz, John Collins. He just picked up his player option for next year, so it's an expiring one-year deal. It's about $2 million less than what Wiggins makes. It's not an ideal fit for Miami, although they've liked Collins. He's a local kid. Could they look at him as maybe a third big behind Bam and Kel'el Ware? It might be interesting if they're just looking for that spot, or do they maybe try to go bigger with Utah? We've talked about the Bleacher Report proposal a lot, where it would be like Larry Markkinen and Colin Sexton and Clarkson and all these guys coming over. But what if it was a John Collins expiring and a Colin Sexton expiring for something around Wiggins and Rozier or Wiggins and Duncan Robinson? Just a trade machine idea that I had earlier.
It just doesn't seem like that's a move that Miami would make now, because I think they're committed to both Kel'el Ware and also Bam Adebayo at the 4th spot. So they're looking for someone who's more of a 3, and I don't think Collins fits that bill. So I just... When Bam was starting at center, it seems to make a lot of sense. He was a great fit in that regard. He was a guy who was a vertical threat, a guy who could attack from the dunker's position, who could stretch the floor from the corner. There were a lot of options there. But now we're seeing an evolution. Now Bam fits that role, and that's what he's supposed to be doing. So I can't see the fit with Collins there. I think you're going to go for either a wing if you're going to make that kind of move, or definitely somebody in the backcourt to play as a playmaker, to be able to stretch the floor, create scoring opportunities that way. Collins was a great option for Miami, and I'm still curious and intrigued by it because of I know how much we heard a lot of buzz about him wanting to be drafted by Miami, and it just didn't work out that way. And I wonder whether or not he could find a way to thrive here and finally get the stability that he's been looking for throughout his career. Because you think about it, much like Tyler Hero, his name was constantly linked to trade talks in Atlanta.
Right.
And there was just like every trade deadline, every summer, it was Collins' name who was the one who was tossed about. And finally he was traded to Utah, and that was a sinking ship at that point in time. So there's no way for him to flourish. So for him to be able to find himself in an environment like Miami's that is so known for their stability could help unlock him to another level. Plus the fact of being a hometown kid or local kid, whatever, I think that would be a huge factor. I just don't see it as the right fit for this version of the Miami Heat.
Feels like not the first option.
Yeah, no, I don't think
If
so.
you had to get off the Wiggins thing and that was the only thing there, maybe it's an option. Cooper Flagg was just selected by the Dallas Mavericks #1. No surprise there. We expect Dylan Harper to go #2 to San Antonio. Then the draft gets kind of weird.
Yep.
I'm going to ask you one more thing before we take a quick break here, but I'm putting you on the spot, David.
All right.
Number 20 comes around. Miami makes their selection. Who do you think you would be most excited for if they took them?
If they slipped at 20?
Maybe not slip, but just like a guy you could picture maybe being there, and you'd be like,
I think I'm coming around to the Richardson idea.
Okay.
You've kind of built it up.
I sense that
But
from you.
the intangibles there, I think, are a huge factor, and I think he's going to provide a spark there. I don't know if our all-star potential is necessarily in the future, but I think he's going to be a high-level contributor right away.
We have totally flipped in our draft process. You were higher on Walter Clayton Jr. I was higher on Jace Richardson. I would be really excited for Clayton, which is a lot because I don't get
Same
excited
here.
for Gators. That's
Same
not
here.
something I do. It took me a real hard time to get over that emotional hump. But I like him. The more I watch the tape, the more I liked him. I like Jace Richardson too. I don't know. But we'll see what happens here. We are going to take a break on the live stream. Keep this up because we're going to be back. We're going to let a couple of these picks come off the board. We're going to come back here on the Locked On Heat live stream and react to some of the news there and some of the latest picks. So don't close this out. We'll be right back here in a little bit. We're going to react to some of the picks here in a second. But we're going to take a quick break.
Cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang. Stack them high like a cookie chain. Sharing with friends, spreading the fame. Every bite, life's never the same. Cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang. Late night cravings, we answer the call. Cookies and milk, the best combo of all. From big to small, we love them all. Join the cookie gang and have a ball. Cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang. Cookie gang, cookie gang. Less is sweet in the cookie domain. Love and laughter, that's our main claim. Cookie gang, cookie gang. Less is sweet in the cookie domain. Cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang. Cookie gang. Cookie gang. Cookie gang. Cookie gang, 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 cookie gang. Cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang. Stack them high like a cookie chain. Sharing with friends, spreading the fame. Every bite, life's never the same. Cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang. Late night cravings, we answer the call. Cookies and milk, the best combo of all. From big to small, we love them all. Join the cookie gang and have a ball. Cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang. Cookie gang, cookie gang. Less is sweet in the cookie domain. Love and laughter, that's our main claim. Cookie gang, cookie gang. Less is sweet in the cookie domain. Cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang. Cookie gang. Cookie gang. Cookie gang. Cookie gang, 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 cookie gang. Cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang. Stack them high like a cookie chain. Sharing with friends, spreading the fame. Every bite, life's never the same. Cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang. Late night cravings, we answer the call. Cookies and milk, the best combo of all. From big to small, we love them all. Join the cookie gang and have a ball. Cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang, cookie gang. Cookie gang, cookie gang. Less is sweet in the cookie domain. Love and laughter, that's our main claim. Cookie gang, cookie gang. Less is sweet in the cookie domain.
All right, we are back here on the live stream. Thanks all who hung out while we took a little bit of a break there. We are 7 picks into the NBA draft. Cooper Flag goes number 1, Dylan Harper number 2, VJ Edgecombe number 3, Con Knuppel 4, Ace Bailey goes to Utah at 5. We got Trey Johnson at 6 and Jeremiah Fears at 7. David, Ace Bailey at 5 to the Utah Jazz. That was the big swing point in the draft. Where was Ace Bailey going to go? As soon as Edgecombe goes number 3 to Philadelphia, it became very clear that basically Bailey could fall anywhere. There was some scuttle before the draft that he might be trying to get to New Orleans or Washington or Brooklyn. Well, the Angels take him. Ace Bailey heads to Salt Lake City. And we've got reporting afterwards, they're going to keep him. No movement from the Angels. They're just going to keep him. What do you think about Ace Bailey in Utah?
I don't know. I can't see the vision there for Danny Ainge. I know there's talent, and maybe just take that swing, but maybe that's just the best way of adding talent. It seems like Utah's just in this weird phase in terms of where they're at. Are they going to be leaning into a full rebuild? What's the process for them? We've heard them talk about different teams that they're shopping certain players to. Are they going to be trading Markkanen? Are they be trading Colin Sexton, John Collins? So they're active. They were reportedly interested in Jaylen Brown as well. So I'm not sure what the goal is there for Utah, and hence I don't see what Bailey, how he fits into that group there. But there's no denying the talent. We heard about the some of the off the court concerns, the drive, whatever. But I mean, I think he's going to be a competent player. It's just I'm struggling to see how Utah is able to maximize a guy like Bailey this season.
Best player available, I guess. I mean,
sure.
The Jazz they just don't have a lot of high-level talent. Keontae George here and Isaiah Collier there, Walker Kessler over there. They don't have a guy. They don't have a high-level talented player. And so, look, the Jazz wanted to have a really good pick. They fell, whatever it was, 4 spots in the lottery. So they take a guy who had projected to be a top 3 pick in a draft class where for a long time it felt like it was Cooper Flag and then it was either Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey, one of the Rutgers guys, and then kind of everybody else. And then throughout the draft process, to your point, Ace Bailey kind of shot himself in the foot, but he kind of did it on purpose. So if you're Utah, it's just like, all right, let's just bet on the talent, and you go from there. After that, Miami dodges a bullet here. Jeremiah Fears goes number 7 to New Orleans. I'm only half joking here. I just didn't want him to fall, and I didn't want to look like an idiot in case the Heat did take him. Now I won't. So I don't see it with Fears. Yeah. I don't see it. I don't. But there was a lot of reporting before the draft, very credible stuff from a lot of different places saying Fears is going to go top 10. I don't get it, but you know what? I hope it works out for New Orleans, I guess he gets to learn from Jordan Poole.
Always a good kind of mentorship role that you're looking for.
Yep.
I think it's really going to pay off huge dividends. You never know. It's so hard to predict exactly how it's going to play out. You hope that these teams have a vision, and yet I don't know. You see a move like that, and you kind of have to shake your head and wonder whether or not they really do have any kind of idea what kind of player they're getting and what they're actually doing. But you know what? That's a whole other team. Right now, I'm as excited, I think, as we are about this draft. I wonder what Miami still is going to do. We still don't have any kind of clear indicator with just a few picks in so far regarding what Miami's goal is and how they're going to – what players they might wind up dropping to Miami at number 20.
Well, is the pick in at number 8 yet? Has that been reported? I don't think so. But, look, Ace Bailey is gone. Jeremiah Fears is gone. Trey Johnson is gone. All the guys who could potentially fall aren't falling. So I don't know that anybody had this order necessarily. Maybe you did. It doesn't feel like that order, but it's mostly been chalk, right? These have been sort of the top 8 to 9 guys. The pick is in on Brooklyn now. Let's see who they take. Okay, so that's maybe the first Yegor Demon going to Brooklyn here at 8. That was a guy that Miami might that they were sort of in the mix for had they not made the playoffs. He was a guy that a lot of people were starting to mock to Miami had they gotten a lottery pick. People really like him. He's a guy that was sort of talked about maybe in the top 5 at one point. He dropped a little bit, questions about his outside shooting, things like that. But there's no questioning his court vision, his passing, his playmaking skills. And Brooklyn makes him their number 1 pick. He's going to run whatever version of their offense they're going to have after they make 4 more picks in the first round, I guess.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice there, but I guess he's kind of the table setter for the future. And so, who they surround him with is still very much up in the air, but at the same time, you kind of have a stabilizing force, and I don't think he's a high-risk player. I think he's a good – he raises the floor for that team pretty substantially, and I think that's
best ball handler, playmaker left, right? I mean, you look at the board, you've got Noah Sengay, Kamen Malawach. You can maybe go with Yakonis from Illinois, but they obviously like Demon more. But other than that, like he was the best guard. If Trey Johnson and Jeremiah Fears don't go right before him, Brooklyn probably takes one of them. I don't know, depending on where they had Demon on their board. But they obviously had targeted, hey, we need a playmaker, we need a guy in the backcourt to set up our offense, and they go Demon. He's a joy to watch. He's going to make Brooklyn, at the very least, a lot more fun than just watching Cam Thomas jack up 20 shots a game. But that was sort of, I don't know if this even qualifies as a reach necessarily. I still kind of think things are going chalk. It doesn't really look like anybody's going to fall or anybody's slipping.
Reach,
and not even talking
a little
about 20.
unexpected, right? I'd say a little unexpected.
It's a little bit of a reach, right? But so far, no indications if anybody's going to fall to Miami. We got this comment. If you guys have questions, you can leave them in the chat here. We got this comment. High-level player, sounds like what Miami Heat lacks. It's true, and that's why I can't even knock the Jazz. Sometimes you just get the talent and you figure it out later, especially if you don't have a lot of talent. To me, if you're picking in the top 10, don't even talk to me about fit. Because if you're in the top 10, that means you don't have very many good players. So fit doesn't necessarily matter for you.
Right.
You just need good players and make the new players that you're about to get fit around that good player if that player pans out.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's about building as much talent, whether they pay off or not. That's a question you kick down the road. You add that player who can find a way to shine and contribute. I just love the reaction from fans because they're showing it on the draft right now. They have no idea who this kid is, and they're not really excited about it. But you know what? You're always going to have players like that, and that's fine. It's just about building things the right way. I don't know. I'm not typically, as many of our longtime listeners and fans know, somebody who invests heavily in the draft, especially given how Miami has operated when it comes to the draft historically. Obviously things have changed for this team in recent years where they have added guys like Bam, Tyler, Nico, Jaime, etc. So we see that they're kind of leaning in towards building, and I think that's something that's going to change more in the future with the CBA and the salary cap issues and constraints that are built in there. But at the same time, you just got to find a way to shore up key positions in their roster, and Miami has so many different question marks. So, I know for a team like Utah, you just want to get whatever best player is available. I think Bailey fits in.
What would you say are the major needs for Miami right now? When you look at the roster, what are the top 3 team needs in your mind?
I would say you need a top scorer right away, because regardless of whether they're a rookie or anything else, somebody that greases the wheels on this offense so that's not going to be a grinding halt every time you're looking at a possession there, who gets the shot, what happens offensively. That would be my top priority, is looking at somebody who's an effortless scorer, a 3-level scorer, a guy who can create and make his own shot easily. And I don't know that player is going to be available at the 20th pick. So
right.
Second to that, I would say probably somebody in the backcourt that is a decent defender, and I would say probably a high-level playmaker, and just somebody who can set the table for Tyler to make shots easier for him because he's such a good shooter, somebody who can draw defenses a little bit, maybe make a little contact. I don't know how Walter Clayton fits into that mode. I don't know how Jace Richardson fits into that mode. Again, I'm not sure that there's a right fit at number 20 who addresses that sort of need. So other than that, then I would say in third, I would say score, playmaker, and then wing defender, I'd say, probably a point attack defender, somebody who can really continue to put pressure and help Miami be a little bit more, because I think the defensive numbers, as good as they were, and we talked about this before, a little bit of a mirage.
Yeah.
That being the case, you just want somebody who can, you know what, go be a dog out there, go be a defensive stopper, make things difficult, challenge the other team, instill a little bit of chaos.
Right.
Defensively, because that's something that was missing last year.
A defensive playmaker, right? When you look at a guy like Noah Penda, who led the French league in steal and block rate, when you look at a guy like a Duthiero, who's just a dog defensively and just makes stuff happen, it's super aggressive. Sometimes it gets the better of him, but raw, super athletic, great physical profile. These are the kinds of guys who could be available at 20 that Miami might want to think about. And you're right, yes, obviously the major need for Miami is a top scorer. They're not going to get that at 20. Probably not, right? You can't bet on it. Does a guy like Jace Richardson or Walter Clayton Jr. fall? Do they take him? And does he somehow miraculously pop into the next big star? It's happened. Jalen Brunson was a second-round pick, right? Like, Jimmy Butler was the last pick in the draft when he got picked. So it's not like these things don't happen. He also can't bet on it. So if I'm Miami, I still think guard makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You just need depth at that position. We don't know what's going to happen with Terry Rozier, whether he's going to be on the roster or not. And even if he is, you can't rely on him. We don't know what's going to happen with Duncan Robinson. Does he get traded? Do they waive him to save $10 million against the cap? What do they do there? We expect Davion Mitchell to be back, but that's not a guarantee until it actually happens. You need depth at that spot. Even if a guy like Drew Smith holds on to his two-way contract, we don't know what he's going to look like coming back from a second major injury. And he was super important to Miami's depth when he was healthy last year. So I think guard, at least for depth purposes, is a big area of need.
Yeah.
I think backup center, depending on how the board falls, do they go center 2 years in a row? That could be an option. Again, at 20, you're probably like, why? We just took Kel'el Ware. If you get a long-term answer at backup center at 20, that feels like a big win at the end of the first round of the draft.
Yeah.
And then to your point, too, disruptive defenders, regardless of position, usually like versatile wings, guys who can guard multiple positions. Make it so that Davion Mitchell and Haywood Highsmith aren't the only guys that you have to rely on when it comes to that. Could you get a Haywood Highsmith with more upside at 20? Somebody who has a little bit more upside offensively, who might be able to develop from like spot starter bit rotation player to like an actual guy for you going forward. Toronto's got the number 9 pick. Adam Silver's announcing it now. I love this pick for them so much. Oh wait, I thought he was going to go Malawatch. I wasn't listening. Colin Murray Boyles.
That's a little bit of an unexpected reach. Also,
another. Hey, they have a type. They love long guys who can't shoot. They've got a type. I like Colin Murray Boyles. I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
Awesome defender, super instinctual. I don't know how he fits with Scotty Barnes, but whatever. I don't understand what Toronto does. I still think Masai Ujiri is one of the most overrated GMs in the league, but whatever. I like the player.
It's hard to see exactly what the fit is. You know, you can only have so many of them, and that being the case, I don't know that it makes a lot of sense.
We got a comment here. So many guards in this draft. So going back to what we were talking about guards. So Trey Johnson, Jeremiah Fears, Igor Demin go off the board. Obviously the top guys, Dylan Harper, things like that. But go back to this the graphic from earlier. The guards who could potentially be there for Miami. Jeremiah Fears off the table now, if you look at our graphic here on YouTube. But Nick Clifford's still available. Liam McNeely's still available. None of this is surprising. We're not even out of the top 10 yet. But just a refresher of guys that might be there at 20. Walter Clayton Jr., Jace Richardson, Will Riley, Ben Seraph, Nolan Traore. All these guys are available. I don't know what to think of when we talk about Miami and what direction they might go in here, because we did a show a few weeks ago about analyzing Miami's past drafts and their strategy and how they've never taken a guy under 6'6" over the last few drafts, right? They tend to go wings, they tend to go versatile, they tend to go ball handler, not care as much about outside shooting as some other teams because they believe we get them in the building. We can teach them to shoot. We feel pretty good about what we've done with guys like Haywood Highsmith and Caleb Martin and guys like that.
Sure.
Some of these guys fit that, but then again, I think about every single year, it's easy to go back and find the pattern, but every year we're surprised by the pick.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of foresee exactly what direction Miami will go into. And I think the nature of this year's draft is going to put them on their heels a little bit, because you can't just go to the type. At least I don't expect it to. I think you can't just rely on the same kind of factors as heavily as you might weigh them. And that might be a bit of a surprise, because we've just seen for this front office that they typically just continue to lean into what they do best or what they feel comfortable doing. And yet I feel like you kind of have to go in a different direction. You have to be able to have a differing voice where you could say, you know what we've done in the past might not work. It's time to try something a little different. And that being the case, I'm looking for a surprise. I don't know how realistic that is, but they might not find that right kind of player. I don't know why I'm kind of feeling an international player at this point. I don't know who. Yeah, I think so.
I mean, that's where you look at the pipeline. You look at guys who are just playing the right way. They're coming from Europe right now. Do they look at a guy like Ben Saraf, a guy like Nolan Traore, and say, look, the size, the talent is there. If we can harness this could be a big pop for us. This is somebody who might be the rare player taken in the 20s. I hesitate to say who becomes a star, but if you're all in on your developmental program, why not?
I think the attitude they had about Niko Jovic regarding the KD trade kind of speaks very highly of him and how the front office views him. And that being the case, I remember when he was selected in the draft, Pat Riley, the front office, everybody saying how much he loved to work. We're going to put Niko to work. And him talking about the recognition that work and that work ethic is such a mainstay in Miami. And I just wonder if that's what they're trying to do. They, for as much as the American college system has provided a wealth of talent, at number 20, you might find a more diamond in the rough kind of player that's been stashed in Europe, because the scouting just isn't as thorough. It can't be by nature. So you might find a player there that you really appreciate, that you like. Miami has evolved in that sense from where they were or early on in the franchise's history, even during Riley's tenure. And so I think you can find a guy that might be a little buried down there and yet has the same tendencies, qualities, talent, potential that a top 5 pick might have had they been coming out of the college system here in the U.S.
You look at a guy like Nolan Traore again, and we've done the Blue Notebook on him. Lightning quick first step. The talent, the skill level, undeniable. Can't really shoot it from outside. There's questions about his playmaking and his decision making. You wonder how that stuff translates from the French league to the NBA. But he's a guy who was projected as a lottery pick for a very long time and fell. And do the Heat just bet on the pedigree? I could see it. Looking at other international players, Ben Saraf out of Israel, Noah Penda out of France. Maxime Renaud played at Stanford last year, but he's a French guy. Miami's done their due diligence in France. Hugo Gonzalez out of Spain. These are guys who could potentially be available there. Maybe you're right. Maybe they go European again. Your Jovic point, I want to circle back to that. By not including him in a Durant deal, this team, the Heat are so clearly high on Nikola Jovic, and they are clearly higher than anybody else in the league is on Nikola Jovic. They also have the most intel on Nico. I'm not saying they're wrong. We've seen the flashes with him. But if they truly believe
Mark Williams on the move from Charlotte to the Phoenix Suns, as we're talking about.
Mark Williams going to Phoenix for number 10? Oh, for the number 29 pick. That's it? Oh, and a 29. So Mark Williams going to Phoenix for the 2029 pick, the 29th pick tonight, and a 2029 first from Phoenix. That's a nice haul for Charlotte. Because they went from getting Dalton Connect and a future first from the Lakers to getting 2 firsts. I like that more, I think. I don't know. It's Connect to the 29th pick in this draft, I guess. It's about the same.
It's not a bad deal. And he's just a player who doesn't fit into what they're trying to accomplish in Charlotte. So I mean, we've heard a lot about, Phoenix was kind of stuck on the idea of acquiring a player like Ware. You know that it's somebody that they've long coveted as a player like that. There was talk about him last year as well. It makes a lot of sense. So it's not a bad deal.
Well, you think about what Miami's version of this looks like. So Houston's picking here on the TV, but we know this is for Phoenix. Phoenix. Interesting. Doubling down at center within minutes. So they get Common Malawatch here at 10, and then they just traded their later first for Mark Williams. I kind of love this for them. They're just doubling down at the center position.
I guess.
It's a little confusing. Is something else happening here? It feels like we can circle back to this.
Yeah, well, if we know anything about Phoenix is they don't mind a glut at any position, obviously.
They're like, we got 100 shooting guards and we got 100 centers now.
We'll figure it out.
Figure out the rest. It's going to be pick and roll, just 2 players at a time, nobody else on the court with them. It's a bold move, Cotton. But I want to go back to the Mark Williams trade for Phoenix. They trade a pick in the 20s for a second draft guy who comes with his own questions with Mark Williams. It's health-related mostly. Defensively, it's up and down for him. In Charlotte, I do wonder if there's a version of that for Miami out there, where they move on from the 20th pick for a guy who might have a little bit more pedigree, might have taken higher in the draft. Mark Williams was a lottery pick, right? I wonder if there's a version out there for Miami that's similar to that.
They just typically don't operate like that.
They don't.
No. I think they would rather invest in somebody that's, again, strangely enough, this is not how the team has operated in the past, where they always look for the older veteran player that has proven. But in this, I think it's just the way that the CBA has changed the financial dynamics around the league. You're better suited to acquire young talent that on the cheap, basically, that you can kind of build. And you have to have that kind of internal belief that your development system will take a moldable player. And that's why the intangibles are so important, because as long as you're willing to put in the work and you have some kind of physical tools, hell, they can make you into an NBA player. That's the way the Heat views these players. And so and they view themselves and their faith in their ability to develop these guys. So I think we're seeing a lot of institutional change across the franchise over the years. The kind of reinvestment in the draft, the approach of the draft, the overall line of thinking.
If they keep the pick tonight, it will be the first time in 10 years that they've made 4 picks in 4 straight drafts, that they've made a selection in the first round in 4 straight drafts. Last time they did it, Caron Butler, Dwayne Wade. Who was the guy after that?
2005?
Wayne
2004
Simeon.
draft. Wayne Simeon, 2004.
Was the last one, so I'm missing one of those in there.
2004 draft. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Nope.
If you're in the comments and you know who it is, let us know. But I'm missing a name in there. The guy taken after. Oh, Darrell Wright. Thank you.
Oh, of course.
Obviously, Heat legend.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Good call there. Norris Cole. Not exactly. First time since 2005 that Miami has made a selection in the first round in 4 straight drafts. We don't know if that's going to happen, though. We got this question from Isaiah. What are the odds that we see a Miami trade right before our pick? I don't know about right before our pick, but not using the pick. I honestly, at this point, David, I put it at 50-50 that they trade the pick.
Yeah, I would say even afterwards, right? I mean, they might make the selection, and then you wind up saying that they're
right.
If these talks are so fluid, and you're just trying to finalize what kind of player somebody would want, and you know what? We select that player for you. We know how much you really like him. You hear a lot of scuttle about teams, who they work out and why they want a certain type of player. They make that selection on their behalf. They might be more willing to kind of grease the wheels on the trade and say, okay, this is the kind of pick that we want, and now you get the kind of player you want. But again, Miami just doesn't. I can't recall the last time they traded a pick to acquire a player already on an NBA roster. I don't think it's happened in a long time. I mean, I'm drawing a blank here.
I can't recall them trading a number 1 pick on draft night for a player currently on a roster, to your point. Again, if you remember something in the comments, let us know, but they've traded out of picks plenty. They've taken a pick, they've traded a player, taken a player and then traded the player right away. Multiple times. That used to be Pat Riley's go-to move.
Yeah.
But to your point, they have changed the way that they've approached the draft. Look, do not be surprised with all of the smoke going around if they just take somebody at 20 and that's it. Like, that could definitely be the move here because they value the draft. They value the draft, and that's something that Heat fans kind of have to wrap their head around.
Oh,
here.
wow. Cedric Coward taking at number 11.
So there was a little bit. So Cedric Coward going 11 to Portland.
And trading him to Memphis.
And they're trading him to Memphis. So Memphis moves up. There had been some scuttle before the draft that Portland was interested in Cedric Coward. This makes more sense, that they were kind of keying in on him in order to try to get an asset back. That's clearly what they did here.
I know you like that deal for Memphis.
I love it for Memphis. I think they already upgraded from Desmond Bane. I really do. I love Cedric Coward. Nothing against Desmond Bane, but Cedric Coward on a rookie scale deal versus Desmond Bane at $35 million a year. This is a roster upgrade. I know that Heat fans are probably a little upset that they're not moving up in the draft. I'm just telling you, the one thing we have not seen in a very long time, and we called this out a couple weeks ago, Miami moving up in the draft. They have tended to say, you know what, even if we really like that guy, I think about last summer, Zach Edey, Devin Carter, they liked both of those guys. I do think that they actually tried, I think they explored moving up, but they explore all of it. Miami does explore all of it, so it's hard to know what's real, what's not with them in terms of reporting around the team. But they tended to say, this is our board, whoever falls to us, we feel good about getting him in our building and developing him.
Well, I just don't think that they've ever been so heavily invested in any one player in the draft process.
Exactly.
Where they're like, you know what, we're going to sacrifice an extra asset, whether
the
it's
last
a future
time they
draft
did it
pick or a player.
was who? Casey Okpala. And that didn't work out.
I blacked that one out. Completely sorry.
I think they did too.
Yeah.
So
we'll never do that again.
I think that I think they learned their lesson from that, and it very rarely pays to move up in the draft unless you know the guy that you want. I love this for Memphis, I really do, but we don't know. We don't know that this works out, and you don't know what you're giving up.
And now with the 11th pick in the 2025 NBA draft,
we're letting Adam Silver make the announcement here. Okay. What kind of suit does Cedric Coward? Oh, a big CC chain. I knew I liked this guy. I actually love that he's in Memphis because we don't have to worry about it.
Really?
He didn't get drafted by like Boston or the Knicks or something that we got, or like the Atlanta.
You like the idea of him and John Morant in the same backcourt there? You think that's a stabilizing
I just like the fact
force?
that I can root for him.
Okay.
That he's not on a team that I can't root for.
Okay, but I don't know if that's the kind of stabilizing force that's going to be able to get the most out of him there. But you know what? Who knows? It's hard to tell exactly.
They could go use a vet. They could go get a vet this offseason. We'll see what happens with them. Adrian writes in, would you rather take the Kings trade package or the current Lakers package going around? So let's do a quick refresher on what this is for the audience here. So Kings trade package is something around a DeMar DeRozan for Andrew Wiggins. And then the Lakers package that was reported by our friend Anthony Irwin, it would be a Wiggins and another salary, like a Kyle Anderson type of piece, goes to the Lakers. And then it's Rui Hachimura, a chunky contract that's also expiring, whether it's Gabe Vincent or Maxi Kleber, and then either a first-round pick coming back to Miami or potentially even Dalton Knecht, who they took in the draft last year, fell out of the rotation. Who knows if they have a need for him? Just feels like they have a lot of guards now after the Luka trade. Do they move Dalton Knecht in a package? So of those two packages, which one do you prefer for Miami?
I kind of tend to think that the Lakers package might be a little bit better. I don't know. It's a tough sell exactly. You know what? No. We talked about it. Hachimura just doesn't fit this roster at this point in time. I like Rui. I think there was a chance that he would have been a good player here. He would have been a perfect addition in 2023 to shore up that roster on the way to the NBA Finals. At the same time, I think that ship has sailed, obviously. I wouldn't do either deal. I wouldn't do either. I like the Lakers package better just because of the potential of Hachimura and a reunion with Vincent. But at the same time, I'm not heavily invested in any of those players to that point where I think that it's worth sacrificing anything in the roster. And also, I just can't say that DeMar DeRozan makes a lot of sense. Like, on the surface it does. You know, they need a player that you could just say, you know what, go run our show for us, go find a bucket. And that's what DeRozan has been historically throughout his career. You were interested in DeRozan. We both were, as we talked about in an episode several weeks ago. Are you more lukewarm now or completely?
It feels, and I don't know if that's a good thing necessarily, but hey, Luol Deng was a nice bridge player for a couple of years there. The reason I dislike it and I like it. I'll tell you why I like it. He could score right away. He could score right away, and they need that. I also like the fact that his contract next year is guaranteed for only $10 million. So if you're trying to do both things, we say, hey, we want to compete a little bit this year. We need a scorer, and we need a guy who could potentially score in the playoffs. DeMar DeRozan is all those things. And if you could swap Wiggins out for him, great. But you could also create that cap space that you want in 2026. I think I like that a little bit more than the Lakers deal, and it pains me to say that because I am a proud owner of a lot of property on Rui Hachimura Island. But to me, I think the DeRozan thing makes a little bit more sense. I dislike it because you're not really getting a piece back that makes sense long term. It's very short term. Where in that Lakers trade, yeah, Rui Hachimura is expiring. Maybe you love him. Maybe you re-sign him. Maybe that's part of what you do with your cap space next summer. If you get a Dalton Connector or a first-round pick back, that's a piece long term. And I don't know that you're getting that kind of piece back from Sacramento. Yeah. And that would be why I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't know. Neither one of them are ideal, but Miami's in a very unideal place right now, and they don't have the kind of options, the luxury of being able to have a lot of different options or to get the kind of right move for them. I don't know. I'm trying to think of how it would work out for Miami if you did acquire the Lakers deal. Again, I don't know Hachimura has the same kind of fit on this roster as he once did. Do you think maybe if you're invested in getting Gabe Vincent, that maybe you don't believe that you can re-sign Davion Mitchell, and that's why you would want a guy like a reunion with Vincent?
It's insurance, just in case. And but I also look at Gabe Vincent as a potential starter. I mean, he could start over Davion Mitchell. Davion Mitchell could start. I think he could definitely compete for the starting point guard job. And you create some depth at that spot that's reliable. And we know what Gabe Vincent can do defensively. We know that he can make outside jumpers. We know he can play make a little bit. He can play both guard spots a little bit, right? We know he's got that pull-up mid-range jumper coming off the pick and roll. But I also think you can find a Gabe Vincent at 20. No disrespect to Gabe Vincent. But you can also find that at 20. Do you prefer a Maxi Kleber in that package, where he's a forward who could defend a little bit, shoot a little bit, very limited, but has a little bit more versatility positionally at least than Gabe Vincent does?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
So let's go over who's left here in the draft before we take another little quick break here. Cedric Howard off the board. Jeremiah Fears off the board. We go back to our guard graphic. Again, a lot of smoke right now that Miami is targeting a guard at 20 if they keep the pick. We got a trade here announced by Shams.
Hawks and the Pelicans.
Hawks are trading the 13th pick in the draft to New Orleans for the 2023 pick and a future first-round pick. Atlanta moving down from 13. New Orleans moving up. New Orleans already took Jeremiah Fears at number 7. Who do you think they're targeting here? They got a guard. Is it a Kasparis Yakonis? I don't know if that makes sense after taking a guard already. This could be a Carter Bryant potentially. This could be a Derek Queen. It could be anybody. I don't know. They got their eye on somebody. Going back to our guard graphic, so Fear's off the board, Cedric Howard off the board. Everybody else is still available. Nick Clifford, Leah McNeely, Walter Clayton Jr., Jace Richardson, Will Riley, Ben Sarov, and Nolan Traore. One last point here. The guys we know that Miami did work out, the clutch group.
Yeah.
The idea that Miami won't take a clutch guy, that's gone. That's gone. That was gone last summer.
Yeah.
I want to remind people of this, and we blew this out with a big episode last summer. But Miami worked with Clutch to secure their jersey patch with Robin Hood last year. And they made a big deal about it in a press release to the media. They went out of their way to work with Clutch. So it's Noah Senge to Chicago here at 12. We'll see what New Orleans does at 13. Chicago's been doing the big swing move the last couple of drafts. It worked out with Buzelis last year.
It did.
People are split on Asenge. I like the physical profile, but I can't sit here and tell you I watched a ton of them. Oh, former Heat player Mike Miller making an appearance on the screen there. What was I talking about before? I forgot. The clutch
Derek
thing.
Queen, yeah. New Orleans is selecting Derek Queen at 13.
Derek Queen. It's a great pick. I don't know how he fits with Zion Williamson. I don't know that New Orleans cares. Fits well with Eve Missy, I'll tell you that. That's interesting. They need depth at the position. They did just trade Kelly Olynyk out to Washington in that deal, so maybe it's just a depth thing, but it's an interesting pick that they felt compelled enough to try to move up in the draft and trade an unprotected future first to go get him. So they're a believer in him. That's not a guy that you that's not a sixth man that you trade up for. You don't trade up all that stuff for a sixth man.
Yeah. So
Maybe, not saying he's going to start day one, but the idea would eventually probably be he starts next to Missy.
They view the potential there, yeah.
Does that mean Zion is a point guard now? Does that mean Zion is not in their long-term future? Does that mean Zion's playing small? I don't know. Pelicans are interesting. They're live to do something. We're going to take a quick break here. We won't be gone as long as we were the last time. We'll come back here in a couple of picks, but we're going to take a quick break, and we'll monitor who is left in the draft when we come back. If you are watching on YouTube, go ahead and leave any questions that you might have in the chat. We'll try to get to them when we come back. Taking a quick break here on Locked On Heat live stream, live from Kaseya Center on NBA Draft Night. All right, we are back here. We've got our first real shocking surprise in the draft. Jan Hansen going to Portland. It says on the screen that it's Memphis, but of course we know that that pick was traded. Okay.
Yeah, he's a player. He's 7 foot.
He is a player. So we're learning about him right now. Rim protector, feel for the game. He's a center. Look, cool. I'm in.
Didn't they just take Klingon last year?
They took Klingon last year, and now they have their backup center to him. They also still have DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams III on the roster.
Well, Miami could use a backup center. It seems like one of those players might
should
be
should the Heat trade for a $26 million a year backup center and DeAndre Ayton, or were you more thinking Robert Williams?
I'm thinking Time Lord might be a better option, yeah.
Hey, look, they have a lot of salaries that can match. It could be a Kyle Anderson for Time Lord trade straight up. Maybe it's a Duncan Robinson to Portland, and they get a little bit of they save a little bit of money there. They've got options, but the big shocker here now in the draft is who's falling here. Kasparis Yakonis, who is considered a consensus top 10 guy, is making a Dalton Connect slide down the draft boards here. Yakonis is not a guy that you and I have talked about in regards to Miami. Don't know if he's going to be there at 20, but we're right now at the 17th pick. I don't think we have any reports. Trying to juggle my phone while doing the live stream here. I don't think we have any reporting on who's been taken next. He could potentially be there at 20. We have not talked about him in relation to Miami at 20, but he's your typical European guard, bounciness to his game, elite playmaker. People consider him right before Igor Demin in terms of his just feel, playmaking, passing, vision, and all of these things. He's got a little bit of a better, not even a little bit of a better, he's got a substantially better outside shot than Demin does, which is why so many people had him above Demin on their boards and in many mock drafts. He was dealing with a little bit of a forearm injury at the end of last season, but before that was shooting 41% from three. So this is a guy who has, this is what I keep talking about, David, pedigree, physical profile, and production at the college level. These are the things that I like. I won't let myself get excited, but if he's there, it could be a steal. It also feels like the thing that the Miami Heat would do is if he's there, they would also pass on him. But what do you think about Yakonis? We have not talked about him in relation to Miami.
No, we didn't think he'd be available there. Just didn't seem like the type of player that would be at 20th for Miami, but it seems like he ticks a lot of boxes in terms of what they're looking for, and I think it'd be a good fit. So I don't know. At this point, we've seen so many times in the past where the player that Miami might like or might be a good fit gets taken right before the Heat actually wind up making a selection. That's always part of the danger of having one of those late first-round picks. You never really can't guarantee it. So I'm not going to get too emotionally invested in the possibility, but I like him as a player. I think he's a fine addition. I wonder what's going on now. Is
So
that
now we
pick
got
in
the
already?
Minnesota pick. Did we get a report on this yet?
The Minnesota Timberwolves select Johan
There it is. Wait.
and the Olympia Club.
Whoa.
Young Benny.
I love this for Minnesota. You get little Gobert to learn from big Gobert. I like this. That's a great move from Minnesota. Learn from Gobert and then trade Gobert in a year.
Well, they were actively shopping him for Kevin Durant, so maybe not shopping him necessarily, but he was rumored to be in trade talks there, so it's a possibility. So
what does this mean, though, for Minnesota and Naz Reid? Probably nothing, but if Naz Reid were somebody who would be available, that's somebody that Miami would certainly be interested in. I don't know how many people, I don't know if this is ever, I think it's been reported, but the Heat were very high on Naz Reid during that draft process.
He's out of their price range, though, I would imagine.
Right. Well, now, unless there's a trade, sign and trade deal, that could be something. I don't know what they can offer Minnesota. Maybe there's a little bit of cap relief in the form of Duncan Robinson's contract or something like that. Maybe they can offer cap relief next summer with an expiring like Terry Rozier. Maybe they're a team that would like to get their hands on somebody like Andrew Wiggins, right? If Nickeil Alexander walks in free agency. I'm just spitballing here. It probably doesn't happen, but It probably also doesn't impact Naz Reid's standing. This is a team that's been in the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row. Johan Behringer is a project, rather. They want to keep Naz Reid there. I mean, too many Minnesota Timberwolves fans have tattoos of the guy to just get rid of him. So, to me, it's Nickeil Alexander-Walker that seems like he's out.
So let's take a quick look here. We got Washington at 18, Brooklyn at 19, just above Miami. They've kind of drafted all over the place, so I can't really say exactly what Washington would take. Do you have any? And we've got a number of players, including some that we profiled for the Blue Notebook series.
Right.
Aside from Yakonis, you got Liam McNeely, you got James Richardson,
well, they
Asa
took a
Newell.
guard, so they probably don't take Yakonis here. I mean, they could. I don't know that it necessarily means that they can't. They could just go best player available here.
Do they take Newell?
After taking Sarr last, I mean, maybe they've kind of addressed all of their positions in the draft relatively recently, so they could just go BPA here.
They go Danny Wolf, maybe a big.
Danny Wolf could be very interesting for them. They did just get Kelly Olynyk, but do they do what Minnesota did and just get baby Kelly Olynyk to learn from Kelly Olynyk?
That's the mentor you want right there. I mean,
Will Riley seems like the kind of guy that they've drafted in the past. That could mean that they love those guys, or that could mean that they have enough of those guys. This is very interesting. But look, we've got how many picks? 2 more picks until Miami's on the board. We've got best guys available. Yakonis, Liam McNeely out of UConn, Jace Richardson out of Michigan State, Asa Newell, Nick Clifford out of Colorado State, Hugo Gonzalez, Nolan Traore, Will Riley, Danny Wolf, Walter Clayton Jr. There's some interesting players still on the board. It feels like they might have a couple of guys out there that you could argue slip to them.
Yeah, Rasheer Fleming. I think that was a name that
Fleming is another name that could be there.
Yeah.
We're at the point of the draft. What the last few picks have shown me, David, is that we're at the point in the draft where
take a swing.
Your big board, and your big board don't matter.
Right.
There's probably, and you heard this going into the draft, there's like a group, like a cohort of like 20 or 30 prospects that are sort of bunched up together here. You have your top tier with Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, all those guys. You got kind of this next tier where, you see the run on the next tier. Igor Demin, Derek Queen, Thomas Sorber, Con Nipple, Noah Senge, Joan Behringer, Colin Murray-Boyles, Carter Bryant. That was sort of that next tier. We're in that space now where it's like the guy that you have ranked 40 is ranked 20 on our board. Right? And we just saw that with Portland, with who they just took. We saw it with a couple of picks already. So who knows what's going to happen with these next 2 picks.
It's take a swing time, It's like you're not going to get a game changer. You're probably not going to get somebody who is going to be an immediate contributor at 20th. It's rare that you find that kind of player. It's possible, but here's an opportunity for you to maybe go after a player that you have a higher belief in. And it all depends, too. I mean, geographically, easier to work out a player like this, maybe somebody that you had an eye on, or maybe there's some kind of allegiance within your front office, a connection there that you can continue to build off. And you say, you know what, this is a player that we like. Maybe you've been setting something up for a long-term relationship with a player agency or something like that, They worked out your guys, you kind of like it. It's like, yeah, sure, we'll take a chance on X player in the hopes of building something for the future with that agent. So there's a lot of different scenarios there where this kind of makes sense, but
so we know that the Heat have had conversations about trading this pick. I do wonder if somebody like Yakonis, if he falls, is that the kind of talent that they would say, no, we're good. We're not going to trade the pick. We're going to go ahead and take this guy if he's there. But David, we talked a couple of weeks ago about the idea of, do they do a Caron Butler 2.0 or a Justice Winslow 2.0, where you take the guy who falls. With Winslow, they had other guys on their board that they liked, but they take Winslow, who people thought was going to be in the top 4 of that draft. He falls down to them at 10, and they go ahead and grab him, passing up somebody like Devin Booker. That ended up obviously being a mistake. Did they learn from that and just stick to their board, or look, do they actually like Yakonis here and are secretly hoping that he falls to them?
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way. Somebody will take a chance eventually, but it doesn't seem like that's the type of move that Miami makes because, as you've said many times, as we've kind of analyzed the draft in recent years, they stick to their principles and who they like, and they need to feel comfortable having done the research, the due diligence necessary to say this is our type of player, because they know their system is so insular and you have to be able to thrive here, and they won't take a chance unless they know for certain that you will. So,
but Yakonis, I mean, you're talking about take a big swing here. If he's there at 20, that's the biggest swing you could take, no?
I would think so, but I don't know that the Heat see it that way. You know, maybe they have somebody else in mind in that regard, and I could see them going for a guy like Hugo Gonzalez, you know, maybe another young player with potential there, another international prospect that has the size and combination of things that they're looking for. So there's a lot of different options here.
There is.
Walter Clayton Jr. to Utah. So they took him at 18.
So Walter Clayton Jr. going at 18 to the Jazz.
From Florida to Utah. Good luck, my brother. Sorry.
So so they go ahead and get Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton Jr. Utah is obsessed with small guards. That's fascinating.
So that means
Walter
Colin
Clayton
Sexton's
Jr.
on
off
the move.
the board.
So Colin Sexton's on the move.
I don't know. They took Isaiah Collier last year, and Colin Sexton was still around, and Jordan Clarkson was still there. They love these small guards.
Fair enough.
They like culture guys, obviously. Maybe Walter Clayton Jr. cancels out the Ace Bailey, and they're back to neutral culturally. I don't know. It's an interesting move. Disappointing for Heat fans that wanted them. A celebration for the Heat fans that didn't. I think Walter Clayton Jr. was on Miami's board. I don't think he was number one on their board. We had discussed that. But he also didn't really match, as we've talked about tonight, the kind of players they've taken in the last 3 drafts. 6'6" or taller, athletic profile, toolsy, versatile, not necessarily great outside shooters, but Miami's not worried about that. They believe they could teach outside shooting. Walter Clayton Jr. was basically the opposite of all that. Elite, awesome outside shooter. Potentially the most versatile shooter in the draft. And undersized. And can play only one position and can guard only one position. Not usually the kind of player Miami takes.
No, not at all. Here we go. I mean, I'm curious to see who the 19th pick is now, because I think Clayton Jr. a bit of a, maybe not necessarily a reach at 18, but I think he dropped a lot on some boards, and so now you're kind of looking at him being taken here.
So what's interesting is we've got Brooklyn on the board. They just took Igor Demet. Do they take Yakonis here? They could say, bite out at the apple, best player available, let's go get him. Or they could say, we got it. We got our point guard. We got our guard. We're committed to him. We liked him enough to take him at 8. Let's go get and address other positions here. There's a good chance that Yakonis is there at 20 for Miami. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry, right.
Okay.
So Utah also included a second-round pick.
And the Grizzlies are trading to the Trailblazers. The draft
Utah sent their 21 second-round picks to watch. So Washington's going to have a chance to bolster. A player that they like is probably going to drop to 21. And that being the case, they were like, sure, we'll take Walter Clayton for you, as long as you get to kick in a couple seconds. So,
right.
Washington building things, you know. They're not going to be a threat anytime soon, but I like what they're doing in terms of their long-term growth. In another 5 years, and look, that again, this isn't a Lockdown Wizards show, but it kind of shows that Miami has to start thinking bigger picture here and long-term, because there are teams in the East in particular that are young and continuing to develop and grow. And I don't know that Miami has that kind of plan, because they're kind of stuck in this idea of competing immediately and not necessarily building for a future. And you see other teams in the Eastern Conference that are doing exactly that. And how does is Miami sacrificing 10 to 15 aggregate wins over the next 2-3 seasons, basically what we're talking about, and then they're going to be wind up losing more down the road because they wind up kicking the can in terms of going all in on this idea of blowing things up or making massive changes.
It's a fair point, right? I mean, you could argue that Miami's in a similar spot as where Washington was when they were dealing with Bradley Beal. I think Miami's probably in a little bit of a better spot than that. But we also know that they're not going to go that way completely. Ralph writes in, by the way, last time Utah traded a few picks in front of Miami to take a guard, it was for Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
I don't know that Walter Clayton Jr. is the next Donovan Mitchell, but look, you know, I became a believer in Walter Clayton Jr. You also wonder on the flip side of this, too, if Miami was this high on Walter Clayton Jr., because all the reporting, again, remember, going into the draft, the reporting was Walter Clayton Jr., Miami, legitimate buzz. I don't know how much to make of that. The Heat are very tight-lipped, but they did work him out at least 2 times in their pre-draft process. If they were high on him, maybe that increases the odds of them trading out of this pick.
So far, nothing yet.
So why would Yakonis be falling right now? Because a lot of teams have passed up on him. Why wouldn't Miami pass up on him? I wonder if there's something going on with the arm injury and the medicals that showed up that teams are scared off by.
That's generally what it is.
Yeah.
It's either, it's either a legal issue that could crop up at some point or a health concern.
With Dalton Connect last year, it was his age and his lack of top-end athleticism. Yakonis is not a top-end athlete. He's not a bad athlete. And he's 19, not old. He's young. So that makes me think that maybe there's something going on with the injury. Because we've seen now multiple guards taken in front of him where we thought he was going to potentially get taken. It's very interesting. If not Yakonis, other guys available, depending on what Brooklyn does here. And again, I'm trying to juggle the phone while also trying to keep up. But nobody's really been leaking these picks. It's all kind of like, since Woj has been gone, and Shams has been kind of sticking to the company line and just not really tweeting it until it happens. So maybe that's the new reality here. But if not Yakonis, Nolan Traore is out there. Liam McNeely is potentially out there. ESPN mocked Liam McNeely to Miami at 20 this morning. Jace Richardson is still out there, who you like, I like. Antonio Diaz, who we had earlier on, Euroscout, liked him very much. Nick Clifford is out there. He's an upperclassman who is one of these kinds of guys who might be able to step into a role right away. Is that more of what Miami is looking for as opposed to the big swing? Will Riley is there. That could be a big swing guy. That's a pedigree guy, a top high school recruit who had a little bit of a down year at Illinois, but Miami could say maybe that was more of an Illinois thing than a Will Riley thing. Another clutch client who they worked out.
A lot of options. A lot of options. At this point, this is kind of how the draft shakes up. You know, you've got, like you said, I think that was very well said in terms of this is all a crapshoot right now. Nobody's a definite hit. And so it's about your metrics, your priorities, your institutional values. And we know what kind of players Miami typically takes. And so can they find somebody that aligns with those values, or do they think that it's time to make a move and maybe they can trade that pick for somebody else that might wind up being, I don't know, an immediate contributor? It's hard to tell exactly where the Heat are thinking right now because...
Well, it depends obviously on what Brooklyn does here at 19. Like I said, they took Yegor Demin at 8. It doesn't make much sense for them to take Yakonis here because they're so similar. But then again, Brooklyn has 5 picks in the first round. They have 4 picks, including this one left. They have 3 picks after this one. They could just say, screw it, let's just take Yakonis, figure it out later. We have 3 more picks. So they could do anything here. They could do whatever they want here. But to me, the guy that I like for Brooklyn at this spot, I kind of like somebody like Liam McNeely who could play off of Yegor Demin and space the floor a little bit. They don't have, outside of Cam Johnson, a great shooter. Something like that makes some sense. Asa Newell makes a lot of sense, too, if they're looking to maybe move on from Nick Claxton and get some value out of him. He's sort of a guy who projects a little bit like maybe the next Nick Claxton anyway. Both of them went to Georgia. those are guys who make a lot of sense, I think, for them. Or somebody like Will Riley, who could be, they don't really have that scoring wing. I like all these picks for Brooklyn. Here we go. Here's the pick.
With the 19th pick in the 2025 NBA Draft, the Brooklyn Nets select Nolan Traore.
Okay, so Nolan Traore.
France.
Adam Silver botched it. Nolan Traore, the guard out of France, somebody that we had on our big board for Miami.
Yeah.
He is now off the board. All right, this is big, guys. This is big. The Heat are on the board, and there are some interesting players available. Thanks so much to everybody who's tuning in live with us here on YouTube. We are about to react to Miami's pick. Wow, this is exciting. I'm not going to lie. This is exciting. Why do I always get so excited about this? All right. Top guys available for Miami. Kaseya Yakonis, still available. A consensus lottery pick falling now all the way to 20. Is there concerns about the forearm injury that disrupted his season last year? Are there concerns about his athleticism? Are there concerns about what his fit is or his top side potential at the NBA level? It didn't sound like any of that stuff was coming up in the pre-draft process. I don't know how Miami feels about him. I don't know how much they actually scouted him. I would assume they did their due diligence on him, just like you do on everybody.
Of course.
But that's an option. Kaseya Yakonis, Liam McNeely, Jace Richardson, Asa Newell, Nick Clifford.
I think Richardson's a pick.
You think Richardson is the pick?
I think so. I'm
That
putting
would
it out
go
there.
against everything they've done over the last few drafts, which might be exactly why they do it.
Exactly. Like that.
Other players who are highly regarded that could be available here: Will Riley, Danny Wolf, Rasheer Fleming, Ben Serif, Noah Penda, Adu Thiero. Look, Miami was in this position last year when Dalton Connect fell to them. We discussed on the live stream last year from Vivo at Dolphin Mall. Do they just take Connect here and figure it out later? In terms of with Tyler Hero, with Duncan Robinson, they said, no, we're not doing it. We know what we want. We want a center. We're taking the best one available on our board. We're taking Kel'el Ware here. That's what they did. So they didn't get the guy who dropped last year. A lot of teams have passed up on Yakonis so far. There's no reason for Miami not to pass up on him. But in my mind also, David, there's no reason to just not. You could just take him here. You could just take the guy who fell into your lap and work with it later. What do we think happens?
Like I said, normally when a player drops, unless you really like them and are willing to take that chance, especially if you have a lot of draft capital, then you can afford to take that swing and be like, you know what, we saw first-round talent, we saw top 10 talent, he just dropped for X reason, whatever that might be. I don't know that Yakonis is the guy that Miami evaluated as fully. So.
I would take him here.
Huh?
I would take him here. I'm not that excited. I like plenty of players on the board. Nobody is exciting me to the point where I have to take him. David, you've been saying the entire time, take a swing, take a swing. This is a guy that was expected to be a lottery pick. This is the swing.
Stand up with your fans and go crazy. I don't want to hear any, I don't know who that is. We're all going to be together, you nation.
This is the swing. I also wouldn't mind if they went Nick Clifford here. I'm high on him. He was second on my board.
I know.
But I didn't have Yakonis on my board because we did the board. I said nobody that's consensus top 14. I didn't even include him in terms of my pool of candidates. So we're here at Kaseya Center during this. They're showing the war room here. It looks like the pick is in.
Either the pick or takeout. Could be anybody. DoorDash? DoorDash.
It looks like the pick is in here. I'm not gonna be disappointed either way, David. I'm not gonna be disappointed either way. All right, here it goes. We're reacting live. The Miami's pick is in. They're about to announce it here. We're gonna see how the rest of the room reacts here at Kaseya Center.
All right, I'm waffling a little bit. I don't know if it's Richardson. I don't know.
I'm trying not to look at the comments on YouTube in case people's stream is ahead of ours. I'm standing.
Clifford?
I'm standing. I don't know. I don't know.
What do you think?
What's it going to be? What's it going to be? Do they blow our mind? Do they just go totally what the Heat do every year? Just a guy we did not expect, a guy we didn't necessarily pencil in. Is it something crazy? Do they take a center from China?
Adam Silver's walking up on stage.
Adam Silver's walking. Are they going to trade the pick?
One name to keep an eye on that I'm told they are expected to be a potential suitor for is Warrior restricted free agent Jonathan Kuminga.
So Shams also reporting now Miami's interest in Jonathan Kuminga. Is the 20th pick going to be involved in a Kuminga deal right now? I can't imagine that they would be able to pull all of that off right now, but who knows? So if it is Kuminga that they have interest in, addressing that position now wouldn't make very much sense. The pick is in. Why does it always feel like it takes the longest for Miami's pick to be announced? Every year.
Because nobody has sources, so they can't break. They never break what the pick is beforehand. I don't know. They may have asked him. He said the pick is in. No, but the pick is in.
All right. It's Yakonis, according to Jake Fisher and Mike Scotto. They are taking Yakonis here at number 20.
Wow.
They are taking him here at 20.
Wow.
That, I love it. I love it if this is the pick.
Did he get lost on the way to the podium?
This is the big swing.
The pick is in. Let's go Heat. Let's go Heat.
The pick is in. Adam Silver walking up to the podium.
With the 20th pick in the 2025 NBA Draft, the Miami Heat select Kaseya Center.
It's Yakonis, folks. It's Yakonis. It's Yakonis.
Good luck, Michael B. We're just gonna call him.
Is it Justice Winslow? Is it Caron Butler? I don't know. But the guy who was ranked
KJ for now. I'll leave the rest of the
11th by ESPN. He was ranked 7th at the Ringer. A consensus lottery pick here. Falls all the way to Miami at 20. Walter Clayton Jr. off the board. Cedric Coward off the board. Plenty of guys who made sense for Miami off the board. They go ahead and say, you know what? You're gonna let us take them? Bet. We're gonna go ahead and take them. All of you guys that passed on them, we're gonna go ahead and take them. Kaseya Center. A fascinating pick here. Here's what the Ringer says about him. High field orchestrator and playmaker who will add rhythm and flow to whatever offense he joins. Doesn't that feel like something Miami needs?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It just feels like such an atypical pick, but at the same time, it's exactly what the Heat needed, and they somehow wind up lucking into it. That's just not how Miami has typically operated, and yet, you know what? I kind of love the selection for Miami. He's a good, solid player that fits an obvious area of need and allows them to do a lot of different things. I hope they wind up keeping the pick, too, because it always feels like, oh, now we'll get the notification after the draft selection's been made that maybe they wind up trading him somewhere. But I love the game. I love what he can do for this Heat organization, or this Heat team in particular, his playmaking, the feel, all the different things that he brings to the table. It's exactly what Miami is looking for. And how many of our fans, how many times have we said they need playmaking? They don't have an elite pick and roll ball handler. They don't have anybody who can create opportunities, make offense easy for anybody else on this roster. Yakonis is that guy. And so
he's 6'6". Got a plus wingspan.
Yeah.
He can play that's the size to play next to somebody like Davion Mitchell, next to somebody like Tyler Hero. He gets Tyler Hero off the ball, which is so important to Tyler Hero's game in Miami's. But to your point, Gavoni on ESPN right now is saying they don't traditionally go this direction. So it's a great call out by you. But this is exactly what they need. I love the fact that this guy's from Lithuania. He's got that European flair to his game. It's unselfish. I did a little bit of work on Yakonis, not as much work on some of the guys that we thought were actually going to be there for Miami here at 20 at the back end of the first round. But I did some work on everybody in the first round. I did some work on Yakonis. The things that stood out to me immediately, his ability to run pick and roll, which he was asked to do over and over again at Illinois. His ability to run pick and roll, elite feel for the game, super creative passer, really adept at making those dump-off passes, or those passes that with the one arm to the opposite corner. Miami loves to run those splash actions to get those corner threes, where they have somebody hit that pin down on the baseline and set up a shooter to pop out in the corner. Yakonis is going to be able to hit that pass on day one. You said this, and I thought it was a really great point last year. Miami might be the worst pick and roll team in the NBA. They just got probably, if not Igor Demin, the best pick and roll ball handler, best pick and roll passer in this draft. I think at 20, you're just looking for somebody who could be additive to your roster. He's additive, right? The way we talked about Davion Mitchell last year, where it just blew our mind. Oh my God, this is what it's like when you have somebody that can guard at the point of attack. Something we didn't have last year. It just shifts all the tectonic plates of the roster, and it just changes things. To have a guy like Yakonis be able to run pick and roll with a natural feel to the game. Tyler Hero doesn't have to do it anymore.
No.
Tyler Hero is the opposite of a natural playmaker passer.
Yep.
He's a natural scorer, a natural shooter. Yakonis is opposite of that. He's a natural playmaker, a natural passer, not necessarily a natural scorer. But we said this in our lead up to this draft. Miami doesn't care about the outside shooting component. They believe they can teach you to shoot. They want you to have size, and they want you to have feel, and they want you to bring something to the table. Yakonis does that, and if he pops and they can get him to shoot at a relatively high clip within the next couple of years, this could be the steal of the draft.
I love it. I really just think he provides so much of what Miami's needed offensively, because you saw so many possessions that were just these slogs of just trying to create your own shot. And now you have, when was the last time Miami had a legitimate playmaker on this roster?
Kyle Lowry, his first year. Goran Dragic before that. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. And I think he has a potential, Yakonis does, to be better than Lowry does, because Lowry had already taken a step back in regards to his playmaking ability. He did not unlock that roster the way many people expected him to. And that's fine. He was still a positive plus player maker. I think ultimately, though, you take a swing on a young player like this, it could really make an impact, and it makes everything so much easier for this team. Now, and I saw this in the comments, if you can get that kind of playmaker and somehow wind up making the move for, say, a guy like Kuminga, who's a natural scorer, does that unlock his game even further?
That's a great point. That is a great point. Another point here from Nick in the comments. Ware and Yakonis are going to be good together. Yeah. Having Yakonis with Bam. Bam, yeah. A big part of Bam's struggles offensively is that nobody could throw an entry pass to the guy. Nobody could throw him a lob. And ironically enough, the best lob thrower on the team is Terry Rozier, and he did everything else horribly last year, and you couldn't get him on the court. But he was the best lob thrower to Bam. If Yakonis could come in and be a legit playmaker for you, look, probably he's not going to start on day one. I would be shocked. But as your backup point guard, and if you can run lineups of Yakonis and Kel'el Ware as your second unit, and then have Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo anchoring your first unit, that at least theoretically makes some sense there. I love the size part of this. You were big on Josh Giddey last year. You were very impressed by him. There's a lot of Josh Giddey in this guy's game. There's a lot of Nikola Topic last year, who, again, was a lottery pick last year. People are expecting big things from him in his second year now that he's healthy in Oklahoma City. This is the kind of player Miami's, they've never had a player like this. They've had playmaking guards. They've had European players. They've never had a big guard, and you see where the league is going. Tyrese Halliburton, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm not saying he's going to be the next version of that, but he at least is in that mold. He's got the physical profile of those guys, and that's a thing Miami's never really had at that spot.
No, I really do like the selection. I think it's a great fit. You know what? I'm going to disagree with you, though. I think he winds up starting. I think he could be the better option as a starter with Davion coming off the bench, because I know maybe that's too much of a risk having him and Tyler at the same time out there. I don't know. It all depends on what other moves they make. But I just feel like you need somebody to make the offense move a little bit more easily in that starting lineup. Defense, you know what? You'll have enough defenders there, I think, eventually, if you can bring Davion. Or does it signify that maybe this is the end of Davion's tenure in Miami? There's a lot of possible options there.
I think if they were up to them, Davion would be a backup. He would come off the bench as your defensive guy. I mean, he's 6'6", Yakonis is. You could say he could play another position. I would rather him just be a point guard. But his stats last year at Illinois, 15 points on 44% shooting, 32% from three-point range.
Not
but
great.
again, that was after, that's including the forearm injury. Before the forearm injury, he was shooting at a 40% clip from three at a high volume, 5.2 three-point attempts per game. You know me. I like, even when you can't shoot at the college level, I like that you take them. Because when you're taking them, that tells me behind the scenes you're working on them. You don't take those shots unless you're confident in that shot, and you're not confident in that shot unless you're putting the work in behind the scenes. So I like that he's done that.
You know what?
The free throw percentage is good at 85%.
I've seen a lot of people commenting already about his turnovers, and they are a little high.
They are.
But you've got to take chances. And remember, we're talking about his teammates in this sense. This is at the college level. These are guys that aren't necessarily – he might be the most skilled player on that Illinois team, and as such, he was making plays for everybody else in that roster. It's not necessarily on him that they weren't able to either catch the ball or finish those plays at a high level. That's what you do. And I trust that Miami has the players on the roster to maximize those playmaking abilities, and he's going to unlock them in a way that we have not seen in some time. So I'm not concerned about the rosters. You got to take chances. You got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, etc. And I think with his talent, his playmaking, his passing, his court vision, these are necessary factors. And you take the risk. You take the risk that he's going to tighten things up a little bit and become a little bit more consistent, so long as he can help everybody else in this roster. Look, we've talked about this team, this iteration of this group for years has been one that struggles with offense, that can't seem to make their own shots, that dribbles the hell out of the ball for 20-something seconds of the shot clock only to pull up a rush shot at the very end. You finally have somebody who can unlock an offense on this roster. Maybe we're a little too high on him, but that's what the draft is all about. You hope, you pray, you wish, and you know what? And sometimes it pans out. And I am very cautiously optimistic that this guy is going to help Miami in a big way, and I think Heat fans are going to love his playmaking ability.
There's a lot to like about the pick. I want to go back to the point about the assist to turnover ratio. 4.7 assists to 3.7 turnovers last year at Illinois. He took too many chances. He was a little sloppy with the basketball. To your point, Illinois, he kind of had to do it. He's not a perfect player. He fell to 20. But I would rather, he has creativity and he has vision and he's able to process things. When you talk about a pick and roll ball handler, you're not just talking about a guy who runs pick and roll, guy goes under, I shoot it, guy goes over, I attack the basket, and then I throw the pass. There's so much more to pick and roll ball handling. Stacking plays, stacking actions, being ahead of the defense. He showed the ability to do that. He's a good reader of the floor, feel for the game stuff. That's the stuff that's very, very hard to teach. It's the stuff, frankly, that Miami's been trying to teach Tyler Hero, and it just hasn't gotten to that level. Yakonis is a natural playmaking forward who naturally thinks the game in that way. That's huge. And to go back to the assist to turnover ratio, does he get himself into trouble a little bit too much with a little bit too much of a flashy pass? Does he try to get a little too creative, fit a ball in a window that's not there? Yes. But I would rather you have that creative flair and then dial it back than try to teach you to read the game at that level and try to get and try to fit you into that role that you're otherwise don't have that skill, don't have that feel. I'd rather you have that ability and just try to dial it back a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt. It's exactly right. If you haven't shown that ability, very rarely do you get a player like Bam Adebayo who wasn't given the opportunity to unlock all of his talents, the way he can operate, and Miami gave him that chance eventually. But that's more, I think, of a product of John Calipari and how he kind of uses players very specifically in a very specific way, regardless of what their broader talents might be. I think there's a lot to like about a player like this. You know, if he can bring that kind of swag, and I think that's going to be it. I think it's an opportunity for our offense to look much more fluid than it has in years past. And everybody points to, I can't recall exactly what that game was, where I think Miami was out a couple of players and their offense just seemed to flow, and there was a lot of ball movement, et cetera. And it's like, well, why doesn't Miami play like that more often? Well, guess what? A player like Yakonis helps in that regard, and I think he really does make things so much easier for this team, especially for a guy like Bam Adebayo. I really love the idea of pairing him and Ware together for a long time. You want to be able to have that chemistry, and I really, really do enjoy that. A lot of different things here. So if you want to pivot, I know we're all excited about the pick, or at least most of us seem to be. Do you think now that they've addressed this very glaring need on the roster that there's an obvious target area that they want to look to in terms of either a trade or in free agency or something else like that?
Well, I think you nailed it before. I think somebody now like Kuminga does make sense. Somebody that could set Kuminga up and spoon-feed him the shots that he wants. Heck, I mean, even if you want to make the DeRozan deal, that makes a little bit more sense now. I mean, if you can go, look, they still need a scorer. They still need a scoring option. That's out there. But in terms of where the Heat are thinking, they did not trade this pick in a deal, in a package, to go get 37-year-old Kevin Durant. And instead they used it on a 19-year-old who they like. You wanted the Heat to pick a direction. This is it. It's not a rebuild, but it's, hey, we're not going for 30-plus-year-olds. We're going a little bit younger. And we're going to maintain our cap space, and we're going to look at 2026 to maybe make our big move then. So, yeah, I think you address the things on the wing. I think you need to shake up the roster still and jettison some players who aren't fits in a post-Jimmy Butler era. I think you still have to, fix the roster. I think you got to figure it out. I think you got to figure out places for, if you're out on Andrew Wiggins, you got to find a place for him. If you're out on Terry Rozier, you got to find a place for him. Or just let him be an expiring salary that you use at the trade deadline, or just let him come off the books next summer. That's definitely a possibility. You have to answer your question about Duncan Robinson. Do we let him go and save the money before whatever it is, July 8th or whatever that deadline is, or do we think that he's a piece for us this year, or do we like him as an expiring contract, whatever it is? They've got a lot of decisions to make here, but Yakonis isn't the answer, but he's part of whatever this next version of the Heat looks like, probably.
And I like that. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there in terms of it sheds some light on the idea that, you know what, we recognize what our problems are and we're addressing them the best way possible. And I know that's going to be frustrating for Heat fans. I really do. I understand the idea. It's like they were out on KD to a large degree. They didn't wind up making a trade for a superstar. Well, guess what? Those kind of transactions aren't easy to make. You're not going to find them as readily as you would like as a fan. And so you have to understand, and maybe this isn't what you want to hear, but you have to understand patience at this point. But if you're looking to tweak the roster or retool it, just make the kind of changes that make things easier for this group to function at a higher level, I think a player like this makes a lot of sense. And so you have to trust that the front office has other moves available that can surround the core pieces on this roster with the kind of players that will make things easier, whether it's a high-level playmaker like Yakonis or somebody who's an elite defender or a top scorer like a guy like Kuminga or somebody else, or DeRozan. Because let's be honest, that might be the option. That might be how it plays out for this group. Look, and I don't think either of us are opposed to the DeRozan option, because we said it before. It's like if you can keep Tyler and Bam, and that's clearly what you want to build around, and you can get a guy like DeRozan, who many people forget in Chicago was having a bit of a renaissance in his career and was talked about as one of the top 5, top 10-ish players in the league because he was Mr. Clutch, and he had all these big-time shots, and he really salvaged their season to a huge degree. Hurt Miami on a number of occasions, too. Okay, sorry. You're saying he's washed in the comments here. I don't see how. He was putting up 20-plus points per game last year. Like,
if he's washed, he'd still be Miami's best scorer.
Yeah.
Which says maybe more about Miami's roster than anything else. Look, DeRozan's not the answer, but he might be a short-term solution.
Correct.
Right? And especially if you're out on Wiggins and you're trying to create cap space for next summer, it's got to be an option, especially if you're able to get something back in that DeRozan, a deal that other than just DeRozan, if there's some sort of other asset coming back potentially here. So we have so much to get to in regards to the draft. This was look, the one thing that you and I definitely called, we were going to be surprised. Kasparas Yakonis is the pick here. We've gone on this live stream for more than 3 hours now in a very eventful night on the draft, and yeah. So I think we end it here. I think we end our live stream here, and then we come back with our regular episode, kind of breaking this down the way that we usually do it. But look, there's a lot to get to. We got more on the pick. All right, we got. I want to tell you more about Lithuanian basketball players, which I'm very excited about. How does this guy fit in? What does this mean for the rest of the roster? Who on the roster currently is impacted most by the Yakonis pick? And does this mean that a Kuminga move is coming? Does this mean that Miami is going younger instead of older? And what does that mean for Miami going forward? We're going to talk about that. Thanks to everybody who tuned in on the live stream. This is not the end of our shows. We're going to end the live stream here. We're going to come back on a separate feed and record a standard half-hour episode here on Locked On Heat to answer all the questions you have. We're basically just taking a break. We're going to gather our thoughts. We're going to come back with another video later on, another podcast later on. But thanks to everybody who hung out, spent some time with us during the NBA draft 3-hour live feed. You guys were awesome the entire time. The comments were great. Thanks so much for tuning in. Surprising night, man. Surprising night. We got more to talk about. We'll do it next year on Locked On Heat.